My husband handed me a velvet box on my 28th birthday, smiling like he'd just won the lottery. Inside wasn't a diamond ring, it was a set of shiny brass keys to a brand new luxury apartment in downtown Boston. I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. But hours later, as I stood alone in the empty, sunlit living room with a bucket of cleaning supplies, a frantic knock echoed through the space. When I opened the door, a pale, trembling elderly woman, the former owner, grabbed my wrist. Her eyes were wide with sheer terror as she whispered, "Don't turn on the lights tonight. Keep it completely dark. Go to the window at midnight and look down. What you'll see, no wife should ever see." Before I could utter a single word, she vanished down the hall. I froze, my heart pounding. But when night came, my name is Chloe. I'm 28 years old, and until my last birthday, I believed my husband Julian was the perfect man. We had been married for 3 years, and he always knew how to make me feel like the center of his world. But nothing prepared me for the moment he handed me that velvet box at breakfast, flashing his signature, confident smile. Inside lay a set of shiny brass keys. He pulled me into a tight hug and whispered that he had bought me a luxury apartment in downtown Boston under my name, a private sanctuary just for me, and a smart investment for our future. Excited and deeply touched, I drove over there alone that very afternoon, bringing a bucket of cleaning supplies to freshen up the place before we bought furniture. The space was beautiful, filled with bright sunshine. But the warmth vanished when a frantic, heavy knock echoed through the empty apartment. I opened the door to find a pale, trembling, elderly woman standing there. It was Eleanor, the former owner. Before I could say hello, she grabbed my wrist with surprising strength, her eyes wide with sheer terror. She leaned close and whispered, "Don't turn on the lights tonight. Keep it completely dark, go to the window at midnight, and look down. What you'll see, no wife should ever see." She let go, turned, and vanished down the hallway before I could even find my voice. I froze, a cold shiver running down my spine. The cold weight of Eleanor's warning hung heavily in the silent apartment as the afternoon sun began to dip below the horizon. I stood by the door for what felt like hours, staring down the empty hallway where she had vanished. My mind raced with questions, each one more terrifying than the last. Was she just a confused elderly woman? Or did she know something about this place, and about Julian, that I didn't? Trying to shake off the growing paranoia, I reached for my phone and dialed my husband's number. It rang once, twice, and then went straight to voicemail. "Hey Chloe, I'm stuck in back-to-back client meetings. Talk tonight." His automated message played. A strange knot tied itself in my stomach. Julian was always available on my birthday. Always. As darkness swallowed the empty rooms, I made a choice. I didn't turn on a single switch. Instead, I pulled a small wooden folding chair into the center of the master bedroom, directly facing the massive glass window. The city lights of Boston flickered outside, casting long, distorted shadows across the hardwood floor. Every creak of the building made my heart jump into my throat. I sat there in the pitch-black silence, checking my watch every 5 minutes, desperately fighting the powerful urge to just grab my bag and run back to our safe, comfortable suburban home. Before we see what happened next, I'm really curious about you who listen to my story. Please comment the city you are watching from right now so I can see how far my story has traveled. As the glowing dial of my watch slowly clicked to 11:55 p.m., I stood up, my hands shaking. It was almost midnight. The glowing hands of my watch finally snapped to midnight. The silence in the apartment was deafening, broken only by the rapid, thumping beat of my own heart. Creeping forward on my toes, I pressed my forehead against the cool glass of the window and peered down. The apartment overlooked a narrow, dimly lit private alleyway, a restricted zone meant only for building maintenance and deliveries. Suddenly, a pair of sleek headlights cut through the darkness. A black luxury sedan glided quietly into the alley, stopping directly underneath my window. My breath caught in my throat. I recognized that car instantly. It belonged to Julian. He stepped out into the damp night air, pulling his coat collar up around his neck. He looked around nervously, his usual calm composure completely gone. A moment later, a second man emerged from the shadows of the adjacent building. He was wearing a dark hoodie and carried a heavy, industrial-sized metallic briefcase. They met right beneath the dim street lamp. From my vantage point, I couldn't hear their words, but their body language spoke volumes. Julian's gestures were sharp and aggressive. The stranger pointed aggressively at the briefcase, then pointed directly up at my apartment building. Julian shook his head violently, grabbing the man by the jacket before pulling a thick envelope from his inner pocket and shoving it into the man's chest. The man snatched the envelope, handed over the heavy briefcase, and vanished back into the shadows. Julian stood alone for a long moment, staring down at the briefcase. Then he looked straight up at my dark window. I shrank back into the shadows, gripping the curtains as my mind reeled. What had my husband just purchased, and why was he doing it here? Adrenaline surged through my veins, hot and sharp, shaking me out of my frozen state. Julian's car engine roared to life below, and the headlights swept away, leaving the alley in darkness once again. I knew I didn't have much time. Using only the dim, muted glow of my phone's flashlight, I began to frantically search the empty apartment. Eleanor's frantic voice echoed in my mind, specifically a phrase she had muttered right before gripping my wrist. The floorboards beneath the glass. I surged into the master bedroom, my eyes darting to the massive floor-to-ceiling glass window, then down to the dark wood beneath it. Nothing looked out of place. Frustrated, I dropped to my knees, running my trembling fingers over the edges of the planks. Nothing. Then I realized. She didn't mean the window. She meant the full-length mirror built into the master closet door. I sprinted to the closet, slid the heavy mirror door aside, and shone my phone light onto the floorboards inside. Sure enough, near the back corner, one of the planks sat slightly higher than the rest. I dug my fingernails into the groove and pulled. The wood gave way with a soft creak. Resting inside the dark, dusty hollow was a heavy black velvet pouch. My heart hammered against my ribs as I untied the drawstring and tipped the contents onto the floor. Out fell a cheap burner phone, 3 fake European passports, all featuring Julian's face but under different names, and a small, leather-bound financial ledger. I opened the ledger, my eyes scanning columns of numbers, wire routing codes, and corporate shell names. It was a meticulous record of millions of dollars in fraudulent transactions. Julian wasn't just a businessman. He was laundering money, and this apartment was his vault. A sudden, sharp click echoed from the front hallway, freezing the air in my lungs. The heavy front door swung open, and the unmistakable sound of Julian's leather dress shoes stepped onto the hardwood. He was here. Panic flared, but survival instinct took over. With trembling hands, I swept the burner phone, the fake passports, and the ledger into my purse, shoved the loose floorboard back into place, and slid the closet door shut. I stepped out into the bedroom just as Julian rounded the corner, his phone's flashlight cutting through the dark. "Chloe?" he called out, his voice smooth, yet carrying a distinct edge of tension. "Why are you sitting here in the dark, sweetheart? I saw the car outside." I forced my lips into a smile, swallowing the bile rising in my throat. I was just measuring the windows for curtains, and the time slipped away from me. My phone battery is almost dead. Julian walked over and wrapped his arms around me. He acted completely normal, but as his hands rested on my shoulders, I felt them trembling slightly. The faint smell of damp night air and the metallic briefcase from the alley clung to his jacket. "You shouldn't be here alone at night," he said, kissing my forehead. "Let's get you home." As we walked to his car, I looked at his handsome, familiar face and realized the devastating truth. This apartment wasn't a romantic birthday gift. Julian had purchased it entirely under my name to create a legal shield. If his massive laundering scheme fell apart, the paper trail would lead the federal investigators straight to me, while he escaped using the hidden passports. I was his perfect scapegoat. Sitting in the passenger seat of Julian's car, staring at his calm profile as he drove us home, a cold clarity washed over me. The scared, naive wife he thought he was manipulating died in that dark apartment. I knew I couldn't just panic or confront him directly. His arrogance was his armor, and I needed to use it against him. The next morning, the moment Julian left for his office, I tracked down Eleanor. I found her staying at a quiet motel on the edge of town. When she opened the door and saw me, tears filled her eyes. She confessed everything. Julian had discovered her late husband's old, unused offshore corporate accounts and forced her out of the apartment through terrifying financial threats to keep her quiet. But she had kept a backup copy of the original property title deeds. Equipped with Eleanor's documents and the incriminating ledger from the closet, I bypassed our family attorney and went straight to a high-profile federal prosecutor who specialized in white-collar crime. For 3 intense days, we worked in absolute secrecy. The strategy was flawless. Because the apartment was legally entirely in my name, I signed papers giving the government full access to search the premises, while ensuring my complete immunity. Next, I quietly liquidated every single joint asset we held, transferring my half of the marital funds into a secure, protected account Julian couldn't touch. I gave the feds the exact location of the burner phone and the fake passports. Julian thought he had designed the perfect trap for me, but he had actually handed me the exact keys to lock his own prison cell. It was time to pull the trigger. The following afternoon, I stood across the street from Julian's downtown office building, holding a warm cup of coffee as the cold breeze swept through the city. Exactly at 2 p.m., 3 unmarked government vehicles pulled up to the curb. A team of federal agents stepped out, moving with sharp clinical precision through the glass doors. Minutes later, Julian was let out in handcuffs, his expensive suit wrinkled and his face a mask of absolute shock and defeat. He looked across the street and his eyes locked onto mine. I didn't cry. I didn't look away. I simply raised my coffee cup in a silent toast, turned around and walked away into my brand new life, completely free and financially secure. Now, I'm curious about you who listened to my story. What would you have done if you found those passports in your spouse's closet? Comment your thoughts below. And right now, I'm leaving 2 other incredible stories on your screen that will definitely surprise you. Thank you for watching until the very end.